Hey, badass business owner, did you know that you do not have to purchase everything that you think you want for your business at one time? Listen, I see people do this all the time. They think they need this, they think they need that, they think they need that. And next thing you know, they're spending all of their money wondering why they have no profits, especially in their first year of business. Hey, badass business owners, my name is Tammy, and I'm here to help you grow your business, but more importantly, grow your profits. So let's talk about this weird thing where we feel like we need everything. And if we want to be profitable, you can't go out and spend your money on everything under the sun. And there's a lot of things that happen in our mind, right? We're like, oh, I want to grow my business. I need this. I need this. If I want to be able to do this type of job, I need this. I need that. Or I need this fancy whatever, when this non-fancy thing works just as well. Probably one of the biggest purchases that you see are like people who go, I need a work truck. I need a work truck. You might need a work truck, but you don't need an $80,000 work truck when a used one for $15,000, $25,000 will work perfectly okay for your business. Now, that doesn't mean that down the road, as you grow your profits and everything else, that you can't have those nice, fancy, shiny things. But you know what happens to that nice, really $80,000 truck? It gets destroyed. It gets destroyed as you ride around. You know, I see people that they'll go out and they'll buy an $80,000 work truck, and then they will take the inside and the outside of that work truck and just max it out. They want the best wheels. They want the great stereo system. They want the great everything, right? They max out that truck. Next thing you know, they're sitting in a $90,000 work truck, yet their jobs are under $1,000. You know, they're doing $200 jobs, $300 jobs. Do you know how long you're going to pay on that work truck just to pay off everything that you just did? Wouldn't it have been nicer to put a lot of that money in your pocket? Because now you've also created this big debt that's probably at least $1,000, if not more. So, you know, if I'm doing $1,000 a day in sales, that doesn't mean I have $1,000 to put towards that truck. I might keep $100 if I'm lucky of that money at the end of the day. And do you know how long you're going to take to be able to pay off that truck? That's absolutely crazy. I also see it on tools. People will say, oh, I need this specific tool. And they only use that tool once a month. Well, if you need that tool once a month, almost every place will rent you that tool. Go rent it versus buying it, and you just work it into your bill. If it costs you $60 to rent it for the day or $100 for rent it for the day, it doesn't matter. You work it into the invoice for the client because it's a specific thing that that client needs that most people don't need. And they're going to have to rent it if they do it on their own, and anybody else is going to have to end up doing it. And somebody else will probably charge them a lot more because they've got the overhead to have to cover for owning that tool also. A lot of different things. You know what? If somebody's into baking, they feel like they got to have like the highest in mixer that's out there. And the reality is, no, they don't, when a regular mixer will work for them as well. Now, there are some things that help with efficiency, right? And we tried to tell ourselves, yeah, I need this because of my efficiency. Is it really efficiency, or is that what you're telling yourself? In some cases, it probably is efficiency. If it takes you, 10 hours to do something without a certain thing, and you can get it done in an hour with something, I can buy into that. But if you're shaving off a half hour, honestly, that half hour of labor is still going to be a lot cheaper than you having whatever it is, that gizmo gadget, whatever you felt you needed to have. Everything that we purchase in our business needs to have a strategic plan. We need to know exactly what it costs, how long it's going to take us to pay it off, and what kind of impact is it going to have on our business. For example, you don't want to go in debt to buy any of those things. So why not, if you know you need and you want a certain item, how about you just start using your retained earnings? You put aside $50 a month till you save up the $800 for that particular gizmo or gadget or tool that it is that you feel that you need. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it. You really see this with people that have been in business. Let me say it this way. I see this a couple different times, right? I'll have new people that have started a business and they're in their first year, and you're looking at their stuff and they have spent so much money on stuff that they do not need, at least not now. They did not need to get their business going, right? Same thing if they want to go out and market. I mean, the very first thing you don't do is go out and wrap your truck. I love wraps on truck. Absolutely love them. But it's not something you're going to do in your first couple of months. You need to save up to do that. You need jobs. You need to be hustling. You need to be saving up money so that you can afford and put away money to be able to do that wrap. You don't need to go in debt to get the wrap before you even start having sales. Absolutely asinine. The other time that I see people doing this is when they've been in business, say for 3-4 years, and they're struggling and they can't figure out why they can't seem to do more than just pay their bills. They're doing okay, they're paying the bills, but there's just no other money coming out of the business. They're not growing, they're not being able to save for their family. And you go back and it's like the same thing. They went and spent a lot of money on their tools and on their trucks and on other things that they did not need to spend the money. Now, when you go to people that are just raking in the cash, they were strategic with what they were doing and how they spent their money, and they saved up their money to buy something, or they didn't go out and just get the highest, most expensive truck. I've talked to people that have 2 or 3 trucks or vehicles or vans or whatever, and they'll sit there and they'll tell you that, no, I waited patiently. I saved up 20 grand and I waited until I could get somebody who was going out of business or needed to get out of that big fancy truck, and I was able to snatch it up for much cheaper. Same thing with tools. You know what? If you have some fancy tool, I'll guarantee you some knucklehead already has one and probably would be dying to sell it to get their money out. Or if they're struggling in their business, they would sell it to you as well. And you can find those online or in Facebook groups, all these different things. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. Every business is a little bit different. But the most important thing is for you to know you don't need to go out and buy things that aren't mission critical to your business. You know what? Most people that have services, they need to have a screwdriver. Go buy a screwdriver. Now, it's up to you to decide if you need the $5 screwdriver or you need the $25 screwdriver. Once again, in the beginning, you don't need that $25 screwdriver. Over time, you might want to spend a little bit more, because if you're having to buy, if you do yard work and you're buying shovels every single week because they keep breaking, yeah, it might be worth it to spend a lot more money on the shovel so that it can take a pounding and last a lot longer. That's a lot different kind of situation. But everything needs to be strategic. Your thought process when it comes to your numbers is, why do I need it? Why am I doing this purchase? Can I save up to make this purchase down the road? Can I rent it? Do I need to spend this much money on this? Do I need to, you'll spend... this part cracks me up, right? So people have no problem having some truck payment at $2,000, $3,000, $1,000, $2,000, whatever, a month. But they will be mad if they had to spend more than $50 on some type of advertising that's going to get them more clients. What's going to get you more clients? The fancy truck, or spending a couple $100 a month on advertising strategically for your SEO and for some Google ads and stuff like that? Make sure your priorities are straight. If you're going to spend money, spend it on things that lead to sales that can then lead to profit, which then will allow you to purchase the things that you want to purchase. Like I said, I see wasted money being spent on things people don't need. I get it. In the beginning of a business, you got to get yourself up to speed, right? You're going to spend some money in the beginning because you need this, you need that. You don't need to buy it in month 1. You can spread it out over, 5-6 months and then get the basics of what you need for your business. Makes total sense. That's exactly what you want to do. But you don't need the fancy stuff. You just don't. That's for stuff for later on. That's when you're saving up to get it. I know I'm kind of rattling and kind of going, hey, saying the same thing, because I really need you to hear the message. Because like I said, I can't tell you how many people are spending thousands of dollars a month on wasted stuff that they do not need. You know what? Their profit looks good, but they have no money. Why? Because they have this huge payment, once again, on some kind of tool, some kind of loan they took out, some kind of vehicle that they just felt they needed to have, and they didn't do it. Or, I'll get these repairs, for example, when I'm doing bookkeeping for folks, I'll see these items and they're like, yeah, this is for the truck, or this is for the van, or this is for the whatever. And I know it's not repairs for that vehicle, it's upgrades to those vehicles, because they just want to be styling and looking good. And they think, hey, I'm making this money, I should be spending it on me and have this wonderful vehicle and these wonderful tools and all that. No, you don't need it. You know what? You need to have your nose down, you're grinding, you're saving up money, then you buy those things. Don't go into debt. Way too many people have debt that they don't need. And then they're wondering, my credit cards are so high. Why are my credit cards so high? Because you bought a lot of useless stuff and now you're paying 20% interest on that stuff that just sits around in this truck that's way more truck than you need. You know what I mean? It's kind of silly. It's this excitement that gets going and people have this money and they just go spend it. So I just wanted to take some time to make sure that those of you that need to hear this message, stop spending money on things you don't need. If you can rent it, great. If you think you need it to grow your business, save up the money so that way you can buy it. You do not need an $80,000 truck to go on job sites. You don't need that. The client doesn't care about your ride and what you're pulling up in. They don't. They just care that you look decent and that you can do the job that they hired you to do, okay? They're not going to be mad at you that you're driving a pickup truck versus some big I was going to say a word I shouldn't say on this, but you know what I mean? Some big old truck that really is way more truck than you actually need. So, all right, I'm rambling. I'm going to get out of here, but please watch your money, be smart about it, and don't be stupid. You want to be profitable, okay? Go after sales. Spend your money chasing sales, not chasing things that aren't going to get you sales. All right, with that, I'm out of here. Talk to you later. Bye for now.